Hey guys, my name is Dan and this is Stout Gaming. This week we have our first week of the MDL Season 3 VGC Draft League, and we are going up against a literal piece of bacon, aka Jess. Without any further ado, let's take a look at the matchup. So, looking at Jess's team, it seems to match up actually decently well into my team, even though I'd say in a vacuum my team is stronger. She has a lot of pieces that are very threatening to me. So let's take a look at what I think I'm going to be likely to see on her side before I explain why I bring what I bring. First up, we got the Incineroar. She's basically got to lead it because of fear of Primarina Colossal, so she needs to lead the Fake Out Incineroar 80 to 90% of the time, or at least have the threat of it. So the Incineroar has to come, or I feel like I'm in a much better place. Arctozolt with Max Quake, Max Lightning, and Max Ice really hits basically everything on my team, so I'm going to need to play around it pretty carefully, and that's why I think it comes. Vanillix to set the hail for it. I think Silvally comes to clear up a couple of her type matchups. I see it as something that either is a type to hit Arcanine or potentially a Steel type to help with the Primarina matchup. And then I think the Slowbro comes because she can't outfast my team because of the Tornadus, so she's going to try to outslow it if she doesn't bring the Hail mode. So I think the Slowbro is the option that way. I don't think I'm likely to see the Beware or the Sandaconda this week. They both seem to have pretty negative matchups, specifically with the Primarina, so I don't think either of them come for that reason. Now, what I'm expecting in the last slot is one of Kartana, Wobbuffet, Mimikyu, or Dragonite. The Kartana gets a weird rock, paper, scissors effect with the Primarina and the Arcanine. The Wobbuffet, I think she threatened to sweep me with Wobbuffet at some point, so I just have it here because she's probably going to bring it. Mimikyu could be a secondary Trick Room mode, but I do think the Slowbro matches up better into my team. And then the Dragonite seems like it could be a solid bring, especially as a way to fight Garchomp if she's able to get it under Trick Room, but I think it might be a little too situational, so I'm really leaning Kartana or Wobbuffet for the last slot, and I'm going to say my guess is Wobbuffet to pair with the first six. Now, on my side, the must-brings are the Tornadus for priority Taunt and Tailwind, Primarina for the Spread Water move, Moonblast, it's going to be a potential max option. Garchomp hits a lot of things decently well, and it also deters Fake Outs because of Rough Skin. Arcanine's Intimidate is going to be important for the Silvally, for the Arctozolt, and potentially for the Kartana if that comes. So those four were the easy brings. And then the Copperajah didn't really fit with what I wanted to do this week. I did dabble around a little bit with a potential counter Trick Room mode, but it didn't match up well into her team at all. And then the Diglett is not the mode that I'm going for this week. That's going to have to come out a different time. Now, I could consider the Colossal matches up really well if I'm able to get it set up, but I am worried about being able to get it set up, especially if she leads Incineroar Slowbro, because it's going to be hard to deny Trick Room if that's the case. The Purloin is an option to help me potentially deny Trick Room because it has access to Fake Out, Priority Taunt as well, and a few other options. It could even set Sunny Day to get rid of weather, so Purloin is definitely something I'm thinking about this week. Luxray, she does have a very physically biased team, so an extra Intimidator wouldn't hurt, although I do think she brings all her special mons this week. Cofagrigus, as a way to fight Trick Room, it does have a couple ways to potentially deny it on her team, and Will-O-Wisp seems solid, and then Tangle as a redirector is always got a shot to do well in a week. But let's take a look at what I am bringing. First up, we've got the Arcanine with the Pinchberry. It is very physically bulky with Intimidate, and then it also is carrying Will-O-Wisp. So it's a really supportive Arcanine with access to Heat Wave and Snarl. It's definitely a potential lead option, and it should clear the way for Primarina to fight the things that Primarina wants to fight. Like this Arcanine one-on-one will beat the Arctozolt, which beats the Primarina, and then the Primarina beats a lot of the rest of her team. Next we got the Assault Vest Primarina. If she has the Slowbro and leads it, and is able to set Trick Room, which is possible, and I lead Arcanine, the Primarina will be a good switch-in, because with Assault Vest and all of its natural special defense, it will take max attacks from Slowbro very nicely on the switch-in, and is a max threat itself. It has 3 water moves on it. So Moonblast is the only fairy move, Aqua Jet as a way to set the Colossal, Hyper Voice as its spread offense with Liquid Voice, and then Hydro Cannon, because that's going to be a really powerful water attack. If I max it, it'll give me a base 150 max move, which could throw off some of the calcs on her end. Next we've got the G-Max Colossal with Weakness Policy, a special set with Solar Beam to potentially hit the Slowbro, since the special defense on Slowbro isn't that great. Nothing much really to talk about here. The speed investment on it, I guess I should talk about the speed on the Primarina as well. Both allow them under different conditions to outspeed a max speed Arctozolt, which could be Inhale, which could be something that I end up facing. The Garchomp is my secondary way, or actually probably my primary way to set up Colossal, because Garchomp gets Surf, and this is the week I'm revealing it because people will know about it pretty soon anyway. But Rock Slide and Breaking Swipe give me 2 good spread attacks, and the Breaking Swipe to lower physical attack will actually allow the Colossal as a max to survive things that it wouldn't normally be able to survive and get extra attacks off, which is important with the Colossal. And then Stomping Tantrum, just as its powerful single target attack, maybe into Incineroar or something similar to that. And then the last mod I'm bringing is the Tangela for redirection, and actually it's a potential lead with Sleep Powder Taunt combo to deny Trick Room if I think she's going to have some sort of Trick Room setup. Knockoff will get rid of items, Rage Powder to redirect, and then a Protect set. The bulk that I have on it with the Eviolite lets it survive anything from an Arctozolt as well. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the battle. So, looking at her team, it's basically what I expected. She basically has to lead Incineroar something. And what that something is really is going to determine how I approach this team. I think Incineroar Slowbro is her best lead here to go for Trick Room, so I'm going to do my best to deny it. I also realized I forgot to mention the Torn. It's a pretty standard set. Modest because I didn't care about outspeeding Kartana with it. And then it's got Heat Wave, Air Slash, Tailwind, and Taunt, along with a Focus Sash. So this setup I'm going for is what I would go for Trick Room Denial, which I think might be part of her strategy. The Arctozolt looks really good on her team against me, and it can operate under Trick Room against my team since my team is generally pretty fast as well. But let's go ahead and get started and see what the leads are. So we've got Incineroar Slowbro, which is about what I expected. Something's going to get faked out here, and then something's going to get taunted here, probably. At this point, I've completely forgotten that Oblivious exists, and I'm about to attempt to taunt a Slowbro that could have Oblivious, although I guess it's pretty relevant for me trying to figure out if it does have Oblivious in the long run. It might not look like my best moment at this time, and to be fair, it is not, in fact, my best moment. So I'm going to taunt into a Slowbro that likely has Oblivious, and I'm going to Sleep Powder it as well, because if one of those hits, there's a decent shot that I'm denying Trick Room. So we see something maxing right away, and I have no idea what's going on anymore. So I am out of my prep, out of my element, and we're just playing Pokemon now. I don't have anything scripted for this. And Max Slowbro, turn 1. Did not see that coming. I saw Max Slowbro turn 2 coming, but definitely not turn 1. So, against Max Slowbro, the Tangela gets faked out. Taunt doesn't matter because it's maxed, and it's Oblivious, so I know I can't taunt it in the future, which is annoying. Tangela can't move, and Hailstorm obliterates. Yeah. Oh, it survived with the Focus Sash, except Hail gets set. Yeah, that was not a good turn for me. That was what we would call a downer. That was a real downer there. The Torn faints due to hail. The Tangela takes a little bit of hail damage. Tangela is a tanky beast though, so it doesn't matter. Ensign takes a little hail damage, and I've got to figure out what my plan is now in front of that thing. It's definitely not Arcanine, because that seems actively bad. So Primarina's pretty obviously the switch in here. And then I potentially just ignore the Slowbro, because nothing here actually hits the Primarina, which is nice. So what I do here is I max Geyser into the Ensign slot. Either Ensign dies or it switches into something, and Rain gets set. So if it switches into Arctozolt, the Arctozolt isn't necessarily faster than me, although Arctozolt and Primarina's speeds overlap quite a bit because I'm not running a very fast Primarina. Then I've got to decide what to Sleep Powder. Do I think the Ensign's going to switch out into something I want to Sleep Powder, or do I want to Sleep Powder the Slowbro? And after some consideration, I think the Slowbro is correct, because I get rid of hail options. Because Max Hailstorm would set the hail for the Arctozolt, which threatens a Dynamaxed Prim. So I think sleeping the Slowbro here and trying to not let it get a Hailstorm up into Tangela, which would also kill Tangela, is the play. Max Geyser off of Hydro Cannon, that kills Incineroar. There's nothing it can do. It's dead. And I set Rain instead of Hail, which is important. Incin goes down, and then Sleep Powder comes out. Now, this Slowbro sleeps for at least one turn, which is right here, and something else comes in that hopefully I can redirect into Tangela and then have Primarina crush. Because Primarina does a ridiculous amount of damage in the rain. So as we wait for her decision, I'm considering different options here. If it's Arctozolt, she could have Vanillix in the back, and then switching out Slowbro could still threaten Primarina. But a ground Silvally, which I check really quick to make sure that that's ground. It is, and yeah, that slot's dead. That slot's dead. To a Primarina in the rain, launching a Max Geyser off of Hydro Cannon. It doesn't really matter what I do here, so I could try to redirect a random attack, but I figure if the Silvally attacks, it's probably Snarl. So it might just be better to attack into the Slowbro, get some chip, and to get some information. So that's what I end up doing with Knockoff. Knockoff was more an information getter than anything else on the Tangela for this set. It eats that from Silvally, and Silvally's dead. Thoughts and prayers. Rest in peace. It just ate a full power Max Geyser in the rain while being a ground type. And then Knockoff, I see that this Slowbro has a Rindo Berry, so it can resist grass type moves, which is an interesting tech, because I did think about running Energy Ball Primarina to potentially hit the Slowbro, and I also know that Solar Beam from Colossal doesn't necessarily hit the Slowbro, so I didn't really consider Rindo Berry as a tech, but it seems like a good one. Here we are just able to decide which of these things we want to kill, and then let Tangela do the rest. And I think the correct option here is to kill the Slowbro, because I've got the Arcanine in the back, and if Arcanine has to 1v1 with an Arctozolt, it's going to 1v1 with an Arctozolt. No questions asked. So that's the play here, and then I want to redirect any Bolt Beak, because even if it does protect, it doesn't matter. Bolt Beak doesn't matter. I survive with the Tangela and get the Rage Powder off, but it doesn't matter because the Slowbro is dead. Or close to dead. I don't actually think this will kill it. Yeah, it doesn't kill it, but it puts it in range of a lot of things, especially since Dynamax ends. I can just start Hyper Voicing and Rage Powdering, and I'm pretty much wrapped up in this game, so I'm happy about my position from here on out in the game. Hyper Voice should pick up the KO on Slowbro from here, and then Arctozolt one, it doesn't 1v1 the Arcanine in the back, and two, it doesn't really kill Tangela without being maxed, even if it has a Life Orb, which will be information for me to pick up this match. But I'm pretty happy about my position at this point in time. So I launch the Rage Powder. I see the Icicle Crash come. She predicted the Rage Powder, which comes into play later. Tangela survives because it's a beefy boy. The Arctozolt is faster than the Primarina at neutral, which is good to know. And then the Slowbro goes down. So the only thing that I have left to consider this turn is there a way I can preserve differential, and is there a way that I lose because I attempted to preserve differential? And my answer is yes, there is a way I can lose if I try to preserve differential by switching into Arcanine. She could fire the Bolt Beak, take down the Prim, then get a crit if Arcanine misses a Heat Wave. So it's not likely, but I'd rather go for the guaranteed win than preserve one extra Mon's worth of differential, which is just the Rage Powder, and the Hyper Voice is just the guaranteed win. She went for the Bolt Beat play, which was her out. Tangela is really bulky, and it survives, so I do preserve it anyway, because the Tangela ends up surviving. So yeah, that was a very good game 1. GG to Jess, and we're going to move straight on into game 2 here. So, looking at game 2, I have to decide what I want to go for. That max Slowbro beats a lot of my leads, honestly, and with that being said, I'm not exactly sure what the play here is, because Tornadus doesn't feel great, because I still think the Slowbro might have Trick Room, because it hasn't revealed a lot of moves, because I kept it asleep the whole game. And I know I can't taunt it. So Arcanine Tangela doesn't feel like a bad lead here, because I can launch a Sleep Powder into it, and she will have to fake out the Tangela. And if she fakes out the Tangela, then Arcanine can launch a Snarl if Slowbro's out, which can start to reduce damage, and then Max Prim feels correct again here. I really struggle here about what to bring in the back between Garchomp and Colossal. Honestly, I think either of them are reasonable in this situation, or Tornadus. I think any of them are reasonable in this situation, because I could see myself setting up a Colossal late game with the Primarina. I could see Garchomp coming out and Breaking Swiping, which is always a decent option, and that's ultimately what I end up going for. So, looking at the game itself, depending on her leads, I'm going to have a few different strategies that I'm going to try to employ. But this lead was not one that I was expecting. So the Incineroar Vanillux gets up the Hail right away. It still has that fake out pressure that she absolutely needs against my team. And Arcanine's Intimidate doesn't do much. The Vanillux Snow Pressure was in front of the Intimidate. It could just be a fast Vanillux since I'm not running a lot of speed on the Arcanine. I think just launching a Heat Wave here is fine, because if she does switch into the Arctozolt, it takes a chunk non-maxed. And I think she's probably going to fake out into the Tangela. But she switches into Slowbro, and that was not expected at all. The Tangela protects. She does not end up faking out into the Tangela. Heat Wave goes up, does diddly. Flare Blitz comes into the Tangela. And now I've got a choice. Do I think she is going for Trick Room here? Honestly, it's a possibility. And Snarl just feels like the right attack, but it also allows for a free Arctozolt switch in. I could Heat Wave again, predicting the Arctozolt to come in, but I really don't want to eat a Max Geyser that's at neutral from this Slowbro. So I really end up playing very safely here with the Snarl and Sleep Powder play. I drop the special attack, and I'm able to launch a sleep powder, which connects. That Slowbro goes to sleep, which is nice. Then we let the Ensign launch a fire type attack. But, as we've discussed previously, Tangle is a beefy boy, so he eats that right up. Ensign takes a little bit of recoil. And here I've got some choices. The Ensign doesn't threaten the Arcanine, and the Slowbro had one turn of sleep already, but probably gets one more turn of sleep. I guess it's a 50-50 chance to get one more turn of sleep. So Snarl is, again, safe, but I kind of want to predict a switch in here, because she really needs to put something on the field that threatens this Arcanine, because if I'm just able to Snarl the Slowbro to death, the Arcanine is unbeatable in the late game. So I am going to Snarl, and the prediction I'm going to make here is that a Flare Blitz comes into this slot again, and that she doesn't switch straight into the Arctozolt. So I'm able to get the Primarina out, and Primarina is very good, and I launch a Heat Wave in case the Arctozolt comes in. I might have said Snarl earlier, but I launched the Heat Wave in case the Arctozolt comes in, and that feels like a safe switch into me, because if the Arctozolt comes in, it takes a chunk of damage, and I'm able to threaten it while switching out the Primarina again. If the Arctozolt doesn't come in, I'm able to put in Primarina in front of Incineroar. Slowbro gets a 1-turn wake-up to complement the 3-turn wake-ups that it had last game. RNG balances out there, basically. And here's interesting, because she really needs to get the Arctozolt in, and there are a couple ways to do it. Let something die to this Primarina, which seems like the most likely option, or try to get a hard switch in. I don't think she hard switches out the Ensign, because this Hydro Cannon is pretty obvious. She could switch out the Slowbro, and this would be a underwhelming play from my end, but it seemed safe, generally speaking, which is what I was going for, because I feel like I'm decently ahead here. Max Primarina comes on out. Nothing switched out, so we can say bye-bye Incineroar again. I'm able to launch a Snarl. Slowbro doesn't feel good about itself. Slowbro doesn't threaten anything anymore. And something dies, because Primarina has the die button. Die button goes off. And I'm able to set the rain, so I know if the Arctozolt comes out, then the Slowbro has to switch into Vanillix next turn. So I've got 2 turns to work with, basically, here. And I also know this Prim is the most threatening thing for the Arctozolt. So if Arctozolt comes out, the play for me to make is to switch the Primarina out, expecting a Max Lightning into that slot, and I've got Garchomp in the back, so I want Garchomp to eat the Max Lightning, and then I want to get a Will-O-Wisp on the Arctozolt. So I only get 1 turn of Max with Primarina, which is substandard, but it's better than a Primarina that just dies to this Arctozolt, because even maxed, that Arctozolt has a Life Orb, and I know that from the previous game, and that goes very, very poorly for me. I've done a bunch of calcs with Life Orb Arctozolt, and I don't like my odds in that situation. Especially since I've taken a decent amount of chip. But I do expect the Max Lightning, which means this Garchomp will burn a turn of her Max. And here we go, we see the Max come out. But, no Vanillix switch in, which is odd, which means the Will-O-Wisp would have gone first, which means I probably could have stayed in with the Primarina. I 100% expected Vanillix to come out in that situation. So that switch ended up being a little substandard because Primarina, I think, lives this hit from a burned one. But again, it doesn't do anything to Garchomp, so I'm okay with that. Scald in the Rain. I have no special defense investment in the Arcanine, but a lot of HP, so I'm going to survive that. But it's going to do a chunk, activate my berry. I'll get a decent amount of health back. I don't survive another Scald in that slot, but I feel like I'm a little out of position here, because the Vanillish switch at any time, even with the burned Arc Result, is going to threaten a lot of things on my team, and I can't punish the switch in this position either. Like, to punish it, I need to launch a Heat Wave, and if I do launch the Heat Wave, and the Vanillish switches in, it doesn't kill either of them from this position. There's a chance Arcanine dies, although based on my defensive calcs, it might be a bit of a roll. But Breaking Swipe here actually doesn't seem awful to lower that Arc Result's attack again. The Vanillish switch in has to come. Here it is. Hail gets set, which stops the reduced power on Heat Wave. But this Max Quake is gonna hurt something. I am able to survive it because it is burned, and this is very, very physically bulky Arcanine to make sure that I win the one-on-one with Dracozolt. Breaking Swipe hurts it a little more. In retrospect, the attack loss is probably not as important as the damage I would have gotten from a Rock Slide. So I do think that could have been a mistake, especially the damage on the Vanillish there. But unless this Vanillish is Scarfed, I feel good in this situation, because a Heat Wave plus Rock Slide should be able to take out the Vanillish. And that's basically where I'm at. Heat Wave plus Rock Slide. She can only KO one thing, and this Rock Slide will still get decent damage out. And I feel pretty good in that situation, because even if something goes down, I've got the Primarina in the back with the Tangela. So I'm feeling decent in this slot. I only lose to Choice Scarf. And I lose to Choice Scarf. Even with the Yachi Berry, this is not going to be a fun turn for me, because that means it attacks before the Arcanine does. So she's able to KO both things. Which, very promptly, she does KO both things. So now I've got to figure out, how do I win with Primarina and Tangela in the back? So my initial thought is, now that this Vanillish is locked into Blizzard, it's not going to do much at all into Assault Vest Primarina, but it is really going to hurt Tangela. So I need to protect, get a Hyper Voice off, and probably get a double protect. Nothing about that situation feels good to me. But Hyper Voice into both, deal damage. Hope I survive because it's burned -1 Arc Result, and get a protect off so I'm able to survive with the Tangela, because if she switches out the Arc Result into a Slowbro, then the Arc Result comes back out. Burned neutral Arc Result should be able to take out the Primarina at this point in time. So I need to keep both alive, or the Primarina dies to Arc Result, which we know is faster than the Primarina as well. That's the correct play on her end. I get the Protect. Blizzard comes out, does nothing to Primarina. And then I get a Hyper Voice off. Not feeling great here. I need another Hyper Voice, and I need Slowbro, or I need Tangela to not die to Blizzard or Ice Beam, which the Slowbro is carrying. So I really need a double protect. There's no way around it. Multiple turns of Hail left. I need this Hyper Voice to connect on the Vanillish, KO it, and I need the Tangela to survive another turn, and that'll give me a 50-50 read. So it's a 1 in 3 chance to survive plus this turn, past this turn. And then after that, it's a 50-50-ish read. I'll discuss that read when we get there, because, spoiler alert, Tangela is an absolute god and gets a double protect. Blizzard doesn't matter, the damage into Primarina doesn't matter, the only thing that matters is that the Arc Result is still able to KO it, and that really doesn't affect it much at all. Moonblast guarantees me the KO, which is correct. And then, I'm not sure exactly how I beat the Slowbro 1v1. I think the Primarina's Moonblasts eventually do it, but it gets into annoying, like real annoying, real quick territory. But if I've got both left, then Tangalus plus Primarina should be able to do it with a combination of Sleep Powders and knockoffs. So now I have to decide what's the best way to handle Arc Result. There are a couple of different reads that I can make here. If I believe the Arc Result is attacking into the Primarina, Rage Powder and Hyper Voice is the obvious choice, because I believe that takes out the Arc Result from this range. However, if I think the Arc Result is going to protect, and then the Slowbro is able to KO the Tangela with an Ice Beam, then the correct play is to Sleep Powder the Slowbro and just let the Protect happen and Moonblast the Slowbro, or Hyper Voice potentially as well. And I make the wrong read, the Primarina goes down, and Jess is going to clutch up game 2. The next couple minutes are just going to be boring, me trying to 2v1 with Tangela by exploiting burn and life orb damage. I'm unsuccessful in doing that, so feel free to skip ahead a little bit, but I will leave this part of the battle up for posterity, and I will be right back with game 3. So, looking at game 3, we have a bunch of different options. The Incineroar leads haven't really worked for her, but I don't think she's got Trick Room on that Slowbro, because I've seen Slack Off, Scald, and Ice Beam so far, I believe. So I think Tailwind is actually really important to set. So I do want to set Tailwind with the Tornadus, and I'm going to go with the Arcanine lead next to Tornadus, which is my best option against her Hail mode, which I think is the most likely thing to come out. And then in the back, I want options to activate this Colossal, which I'm going to go with the Garchomp instead of the Primarina route, because even though Primarina has been my MVP through the first 2 games, I think game 3 I need to try to throw her for a little bit of a loop. Will that work? Who knows? But the ideal lead for me to see this game is Vanillux and Arc Result, because I get the Intimidate, I can Tailwind and Burn right away, and it's a good time all around. So we move into game 3. And we got to see what Jess is going to lead here. And I am immediately very happy. I see her Hail mode. I've got a couple of options into here. If I think that Arc Result's going to switch out, then Heat Wave isn't a bad option. If I think it's going to stay in, Will-O-Wisp isn't a bad option. Tailwind is basically a must here, because I need that Arcanine to outspeed the Arctozolt if I'm going to try to Will-O-Wisp. But if I think it's going to switch out, a double Heat Wave actually really isn't bad in this situation. But I do think it's going to stay in, so I'm going to launch the Will-O-Wisp and get my Tailwind up. And then we have to see what she ends up doing, and it goes out. Yeah, so this isn't fun. And then Wobbuffet comes in, and I'm going to ignore it the entire battle. There's no way I'm dealing damage into that thing unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm just going to let it do whatever. That burn would have been nice, because it would just slowly work it down without me having to do anything. Freeze Dry is going to take out the Torn, because Hail will take it down. And now I've got a decision to make. Do I want to put Garchomp in front of a Vanillux? Or do we decide where boys become men and send out Colossal with no way to activate it? And ladies and gentlemen, I will have you know that I am in fact a man. Here comes the Colossal with absolutely nothing to activate it and no way to switch out because Wobbuffet has Shadow Tag. We're doing this, ladies and gentlemen. Untriggered Colossal. Dynamax. Launching attacks into the Vanillux because there's no way I'm touching that Wobbuffet. Except with a little bit of residual from this Heat Wave, which isn't bad. So, something's eating a Max Rock here, and it's not going to like it. And it's a Slowbro. I'm very okay with that. I'm not going to kill the Slowbro from here, but the chip damage that I put on it is going to be very useful. And I might even be able to stop it from attacking into the Coal next turn, which is probably her play, because Slowbro is the thing that threatens Coal most on this team. Wobbuffet avoids the Heat Wave, which I think is a net good for me because I don't take damage from Mirror Coat. I do a little bit of chip on the Slowbro, and I am able to launch a Volcalith and get my rocks up. That does a good little bit of damage I'm happy with. And then Mirror Coat does nothing because Heat Wave missed, and I wasn't going to target that slot at all with this Colossal. Hail damage comes out all around, and then Volcalith damage comes out. And the Volcalith damage is almost enough to take out the Slowbro, but not quite. But now I've got a bunch of options. This Slowbro goes down to basically anything, but I don't want to take it down with the Arcanine, because if the Arcanine kills it, then Colossal attacks into the Wobbuffet, and that's bad for everyone. But since Arcanine only has spread attacks, instead what I'm going to do is go for a Will-O-Wisp into the Wobbuffet, just so I don't attack it and do it with this Colossal. Arcanine is able to connect on Wobbuffet this turn. This kind of burns a turn of Max, but it will also force in a Vanillux switch at some point. Because I'm able to set the Sun at this point in time. And if Vanillux doesn't switch in, Heat Wave and Max Flare probably really hurt. So Mirror Coat, nothing happens. We start chipping the Wobbuffet more. Volcalith, burn. It's sad. So I am still operating under Tailwind, I believe, at this point in time. So if it is the Arctozolt, even if the snow comes out, this Arcanine is EV'd to outspeed it at neutral, even if it's max speed. So I will, under Tailwind, outspeed it while it's under Hail. So Will-O-Wisping it really doesn't seem like a bad option here. I could also launch a Heat Wave if I think the Vanillux is going to come out. And both options seem reasonable. If I predict the Vanillix switch, the Heat Wave and an attack into that slot feel pretty good. And if I don't predict the Vanillix switch, then getting a attack off, Will-O-Wisp off into this Arc Result feels really good. So I'm going to attack into that slot, pretty obviously. And we are getting a Dynamax with no switch. So this turn could go a couple ways, because without this Will-O-Wisp, I think the Arc Result KOs it. So this Protect isn't really a good play, because there's no way that I'm attacking into the Wobbuffet, except that I am, because I was projecting a switch. And I don't KO it, which is sad, because now this Wobbuffet's gonna hurt me. In the words of the Joker, really bad. Wow, that was a really bad impression, and we're going to ignore that. But we're just going to start letting the chip damage do its work. But now Tailwind expires, so this Arc Result is able to launch attacks before I'm able to put up a Will-O-Wisp onto it. But Will-O-Wisping that slot is still important. The Wobbuffet 100% switches out here. Will-O-Wisping that slot is important, but a Heat Wave, like a double Heat Wave here, will also chunk, and with what I have in the back, I think it still gives me an opportunity to win, because she sort of has to target the Coal because the Arcanine doesn't go down. Because if the Arcanine survives another turn and I've just launched a free double Heat Wave, then she has that decision again, and triple Heat Wave wins the battle. So here we're going to let this Arc Result, and if it targets the Coal, then this was the wrong play, but if it targets the Arcanine, this was the optimal play. And it targets the Arcanine because Arcanine, she doesn't realize exactly how much bulk this thing is carrying right now. So I'm able to launch a double Heat Wave with Volcalith damage, and I'm feeling good about my position because I think this should KO the Vanillux in this position. That first Heat Wave, Arcanine doesn't have much special attack investment, doesn't do a lot. Second Heat Wave puts it down into what I believe is Volcalith. Hail damage comes all around. And we got the Volcalith damage, which means Colossal got 2 kills this battle. Go Colossal. Your weakness policy is appreciated, but unnecessary. Then the Wobbuffet comes back out, and I feel okay in this situation, because I'm able to launch a Heat Wave with the Coal, and here I'm able to launch the Will-O-Wisp, because if she lets the Coal stay alive in this situation, the Coal's Heat Wave is more powerful than the Arcanine's Heat Wave, and is more likely to pick up the KO. But the Will-O-Wisp, because I know she's going to have to kill something, the Arcanine won't pick up the KO from this range, but it will allow Garchomp to survive everything next turn. Coal goes down, which means I need this Will-O-Wisp to connect, and I feel really good about my situation. If this Will-O-Wisp doesn't connect, then I think I'm a roll to survive an Icicle Crash with the Yachi Berry, but I don't think it's a roll in my favor, depending on the spread on this Arc Result, off the top of my head. Now, Destiny Bond. That's annoying, because I think I win if I kill it, and it's the last thing in it Destiny Bonds, but I don't want to find that out. So, damage comes out, and I've got to send in Garchomp at this time, who will not be fulfilling his role of launching Surf. But instead is going to be able to launch a Stomping Tantrum into this Arc Result, and a Heat Wave should be all I need to pick up the win. Stomping Tantrum Heatwave should guarantee me the win because Garchomp should survive this. Stomping Tantrum can't miss. And Heatwave will pick up a double KO even if it takes out the Garchomp. And with the double KO, it would be a completely neutral game, but the Wobbuffet dies first, so I win. It also knows Stomping Tantrum. And Arcanine's a god. I will say this is 2 matches in a row where Jess and I have played where I've had something survive with literally 1 HP. And I want that streak to continue basically forever. Heatwave is going to take out this Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet is going to take out the Arcanine with Destiny Bond. I'll let the Wobbuffet get a kill there. And good games to Jess. It was an awesome set, probably one of the best I've ever played, and I am really looking forward to playing for the rest of the season. I'll see you guys later.